Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So, I just watched Blood and Water Season 3. Let's talk about it. So Blood and Water is back on Netflix with its third season. This South African series has turned out to be yet another international hit for the platform. And that's right in line with the trend that I've been talking about for a while now with these international Netflix series where they gain such popularity. You know, people from all around the world get to experience this different content from different countries. And in the case of Blood and Water Season 3, it's actually trending in the top 10 here in the UK, which makes me so happy, because without a platform like Netflix, that sort of thing just would not be possible. So I've said it before and I'll say it again, one of Netflix's greatest achievements as a streaming service is the accessibility to international content. I think that is what helps Netflix stand out from the crowd, and to this day no one comes close when it comes to the availability of such content on the platform. Now, when it comes to my thoughts and feelings on Blood and Water as a series, some of you guys may have already watched my Blood and Water Season 2 review, so you'll have an inkling of my thoughts and feelings towards these characters and the storyline. And if you haven't watched that review yet, you can go ahead and check it out on my channel. But here we're definitely going to be building off of what we saw from seasons 1 and 2, but you know, really honing in on what the hell was going on in season 3. Like, what the actual hell was going on in season 3, because this season had me stressed more so than any of the other seasons of this show. So we're going to dive into, you know, all of that good stuff in this review. But before we get into all of that, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. And be sure to give this video a like if you enjoy my reviews. It really helps the channel out and it lets me know what you want to see from me. Now, without further ado, guys, let's get into the craziness that was season 3 of Blood and Water. So first of all, we're going to try and make sense of the storyline this season, because it was wild. It was absolutely wild. So it picks up right where we left off in season 2, where once again the teenagers were doing some detectiving. The teenagers were doing some Sherlocking, okay, and they found out that KB's mother is in charge of a human trafficking ring. A human trafficking ring. This has always been wild, okay? This has always been crazy. Like, the premise has always been just out of this world insane, okay, in the past seasons. But this season is where we really get to see, like, what that means. So we found out in season 2 that KB's mum is in charge of this, you know, human trafficking ring. And we see her at the end there coming into the fold, and she plays a massive role in season 3 as well. This auntie is just on a next level of evil. This aunt, she is the epitome of villainy on this show. She made for a great villain, mind you, but oh my goodness, like Elizabeth was wild. She had the classic villain look, the short bob, okay, the nice outfits with her signature brooch in the middle of her shirt. Like, the whole aesthetic was giving villainy. It was giving love to be evil. But at the same time, when you break down what she's actually doing and when you see evidence of what she does, which we'll talk about in a second, it's like, even though this is a very archetypical villainous character that you might see in a Disney movie, make no mistake, this woman is a real life villain. This is not Disney villainy that we're dealing with here, okay? This is some next level mature rating villainy, like crimes against humanity sort of thing. Now, at the end of season 2, we saw Fikile's life continue to fall apart, even more so than it already had done, okay, at the end of season 1. But in that season, we finally got to see her accept the fact that she was the missing Kumalo's sister. She was the baby that disappeared 18 years ago, and she was the sister that Puleng had has been trying to find all this time. That was all confirmed in season 2, and so we start to see this tenuous sisterhood bond developing between these two girls, which was great to see, especially considering how at the beginning of season 2 Fikile was waving around a restraining order okay, against Puleng. So there's a huge shift, you know, in comparison to how the season started versus how it ended. But like I said, these revelations destroyed Fikile's life, because she just started off being, you know, the stereotypical popular girl at this extremely expensive private school. I recently mentioned how Netflix loves their private schools. This is another example of one. But her life literally turned upside down when she realizes that she is the young girl who was stolen from her family at birth, because it's all part of this human trafficking operation that's run by KB's mother. And with these revelations comes consequences, as we see at the end of season 2, where Fikile's mum, her adoptive mother, ends up being taken and killed. Oh my goodness, okay, like that is just crazy. That's how you know the stakes were high. But in season 3, we see things escalate to a whole different level, because every single person that surrounds these girls, all of their friends and family members, are affected by this scandal, are affected by this criminal network, you know, coming to the surface, coming to light. We even see Puleng's father end up being killed because of his involvement with this human trafficking circle. So season 3 felt like a culmination of all of the detectiving that has been done by Puleng and Fikile, as well as allowing all of the secrets and lies and mysteries kind of rise to the surface to be known to the world, but then also facing the consequences of that. You know, we see that more than ever before, and honestly, I had mixed feelings about this. Let's get into it. Let's talk about it right here, right now, because I really want to hear what you guys thought of this development, because a part of me appreciated the fact that this series went there. Like, it really did go there. It felt like overall the writers knew what they wanted to do with at least these 3 seasons of the show. I really think the Puleng Fikile kind of missing baby storyline was written really, really well and set up really, really well for this 3-season arc, and they pulled it off in the 3rd season with this crazy bombastic finale. Not to say that this is the final season of the show, but just from looking at what they've been able to cover story-wise in these last 3 seasons, it makes for a very well-rounded story with a pretty satisfying ending if this does turn out to be the final season, which I hope it isn't. Either way, I think they've done a good job with this storyline is what I'm trying to say, and I think the payoff was real with the 3rd season because the consequences felt very, very real. Like, this was some really dark, grim, gritty stuff, and it's more than what I was expecting from a teen drama. I remember saying from my season 2 review that this series was, you know, miles ahead of whatever CW could pump out these days, but now it's not CW because it's far darker. It's far more grim. You know, the criminal matters that are being explored in the series are just so much more adult than I expected to be depicted in a teen drama series. And this is definitely increased or heightened when we get the kidnapping of Puleng. This was different. Like, this was just like on another guys, I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, if something happens to this girl, I don't know what I would do. I don't know. I have no power. I have no authority. I have no fighting skills. I would literally be useless, but something would come over me, okay? Something would come over me. I would jump through that screen. Something would need to happen. But the way that this girl was dragged through the mud this season, the way that this girl was tortured, harassed, like, she was looking ahead at her future, and her future was looking grim, and she still had the ability to fight no matter what. And not only did she fight for herself, but she thought for other victims as well. Let's rewind for a second here. Let's break it down. So Puleng ends up getting kidnapped by KB's mum's human trafficking ring, okay, because she knows too much, okay, she's become, you know, too much of a burden to them, so they want to get rid of her, and they want to traffic her as well. And so she ends up in this, like, shipment yard, containment yard situation with other victims as well. And then you have Janet, who was posing as the school counselor in the previous season, but she was secretly working with the human trafficking ring. So she's there too, and she's trying to exist in this middle ground of like, I'm with the bad guys, but I also feel bad for Puleng. And it's like, sis, you need to pick a side. Puleng was absolutely right when she said that. She was like, you need to pick a side. And yeah, you do. And hopefully you pick the right side, because you are literally the devil right now. This poor girl has been kidnapped and she's been made to like lie on this filthy floor awaiting her horrible fate. And you have these horrible people like, what's his name? Reinhard or whatever his name is. He sucks. Literal criminal. But going back to my point for a second here, this storyline was really dark. You know, it was really dark and grounded, and again, levels above what I would expect from a teen drama. They had this setup that they went with in season 1, where it turns out that Fikile was kidnapped by human traffickers, and they were, you know, arranging the adoption of these babies and, you know, charging a bunch of money for them. Like, that was one storyline. I think the fact that Fikile was kidnapped when she was a baby, there's some distance with that, where you don't really feel as connected to that traumatic incident because it happened in the past. We didn't see it happen live, and you know, also we see that she turned out okay, so you know, it doesn't really have that same kind of impact. It doesn't make us feel that amount of suspense. But the fact that Puleng like gets kidnapped in real time during the show, and we get to see like the environment that they dump her into, and we don't know what awaits her, we don't know what her fate will be, that's what increases the tension, and that's what raises the stakes here. And on top of all of that, you have the fact that the series doesn't shy away from what her fates could be. It doesn't dodge the huge elephant in the room. It says it very clearly. She could end up becoming a sex slave. Like this, it makes it very, very clear. And that to me just raised the stakes again, like on a whole different level. And again, to me, this is a very, very well done storyline. I think it was very well developed, and it followed through on the potential of what we saw the story could be in season 1. And the fact that it went down this dark and serious route is to be applauded. I really appreciated that. I think it handled it with the severity and the weight that it deserved, the gravitas that it deserved. But my problem with this season delving into such serious and dark issues is that it struggles to balance those very real scenarios with the teen angst drama dramedy side of the plot. I think this season struggled with that balance more than any of the other seasons prior, and I think it is because they went so far down the dark avenue with Puleng, you know, getting kidnapped and stabbing people in the eye. There was like actual violence this season, guys. Like people were getting stabbed in the eye, shot every day. Like people getting shot left, right and center. And then, you know, whilst people are in hospital recovering, you know, trying to fight for their lives, you have someone like Chris who's talking to Puleng's cousin, being like, oh, I really want to date you, let's have a champagne breakfast. Sir, do you know how ridiculous you sound right now? And this is what I mean, like there's a lack of balance there, because you're dealing with such a serious issue, but they're trying to kind of balance it out with this more light-hearted teen angst drama that just does not fit in the same season of this show. And as a result of this lack of balance, whilst I was really invested in the Puleng Fikile storyline, as I always am, I really did not care in the slightest about all of the high school nonsense, the high school drama and politics on the other side of this season. I really didn't care about Tahira. I didn't care about her trying to be head girl. I know they try their best to emphasize one of the main themes of this series, and that is the discussion of class, you know, classism in South Africa, the fact that you have this very prestigious, expensive private boarding school school at the center of this storyline. This allows for some really interesting discussion on classism and socioeconomic inequality, and that's something that we saw highlighted with the character of Puleng when she first joined the school in the beginning. And they try to continue the storyline on through the characters of Tahira and Reese. Now, Reese is a white South African who comes from a disadvantaged background financially. Her mother struggles with addiction and mental illness, I believe it was, and so she's been put away into a care facility that Reese has to pay for somehow, and that's what led to her selling drugs. You know, that's why she became a drug dealer, something that she swore off of in the previous season but had to continue after, you know, the bills kept racking up and, you know, all sorts of drama happening there. But then on the flip side, you have the archetypical perfect straight A student in Tahira, who's, you know, running for head girl, and she just wants to do her best at school to propel herself for a bigger, brighter future, even though she comes again from not so privileged background. And so you have the head teacher highlighting this comparison and telling the girls, listen, you need to look out for one another instead of being these enemies and fighting against each other, because, you know, you are not like the others here. You know, the majority of other people in this school, you don't have wealthy parents who are paying an insane tuition for you to be here. You're here on merit, you know, you're here on a scholarship, and so the rules are different for you. That's what she's trying to teach someone like Reese, who gets caught drug dealing. You know, she's trying to tell her, you can't afford to slip up like this because you don't have parents that are going to pay off anyone who looks your way. You're going to have to struggle with the consequences yourself should you get caught again. And listen, don't get it twisted, okay? You guys should know already by now that I love it when a TV show or a film goes into some socio-economic commentary. I love it when inequality is discussed in these shows. Like, that is just my bread and butter, okay? But the problem is, the problem remains that there's such an imbalance when it comes to the gravity of these storylines in comparison to Puleng being kidnapped by a human trafficking ring and possibly facing a life of being a sex slave. This cute little storyline about wealth inequality just does not match up. And that was actually the best and most interesting storyline to do with the other students, because the other storylines were dead as hell. I mean, you had the head teacher being removed from the school by the board of directors because there's an investigation going on about what happened last season with reselling drugs and that teacher running away with her money. You know, all of that is being investigated by this guy who was using Tahira to get information, and the head teacher ends up getting the boot because the board of directors want her gone anyway. That is so cheeky, and I'm sure it has something to do with her race, her background, and the fact that she's not an elitist like they are. She wanted to champion the students that had gotten into the school through scholarship programs, and that's something that doesn't seem to sit right with the board of directors. So again, that's the strongest part of that tertiary storyline. But then you have smaller storylines like Puleng's brother. You know, he gets into the school as well. He starts attending the school in a new term, and he ends up getting bullied by this, you know, Mr. Popular Chad type of character. And of course, I was on Puleng's brother's side. Of course, I felt so bad for him, and I hated that guy for bullying him. Like, oh, he sucked so much. But when you compare it to the fact that Puleng again has been kidnapped, like, do you know what I mean? Like, nothing compares to you. Like, nothing compares to Puleng getting kidnapped. Sorry, but even still, all of those secondary and tertiary storylines surrounding those other students are 100,000% better, far more engaging, far more interesting, far more bearable than anything to do with Chris. I have had enough. I have had enough of Chris. Listen, I know that this character needs to be around for some reason, but I'm so freaking over him. Maybe I'm so angry at him because he played me for a fool, but last season I distinctly remember being so delighted with the character because he was getting together with Wendy. And even though I still despised Chris, like even then, I can't remember what I said in my review, but I'm pretty sure that I didn't like Chris even then, okay? But the fact that he was, you know, going out with Wendy, they had the enemies to lovers storyline that you guys know I'm weak in the knees for. I was so invested in their relationship and I was really excited to see where it would go, only for him to mess up immediately. Here's the thing, the show messed up, okay? It wasn't just Chris's fault, it was the show's fault because it sent Wendy off almost immediately as the season started. And that was a piss take. Like, that annoyed me. They were like, oh, she's on this like international program or whatever. I don't know if the actress was too busy to do season 3 of the show. That would suck if she was. But, you know, if that wasn't the case and the writers literally just wrote her off the season just for Chris to muck around like he does always, I think that was a huge mistake because I really would have wanted to see them just be together and figure out their relationship in person. No one needs to do this long distance nonsense. No one needs that. I just wanted to see them work it out, okay? That's the one job that Chris had for this season. Work it out with Wendy, and he failed. He flopped, because of course he did, because the writers gave him an out. And you know, because he's pansexual, he can't help himself. I have an issue. I don't know if I mentioned this in my review of season 2, but I do have an issue with this depiction of this pansexual character. I don't like the implication that like he is so adverse to commitment because he sees other options. Like whenever he has other options presented to him, he will immediately like look the other way. I don't know how I feel about that depiction. I don't know how I feel about the implications of that. I feel like that's something that you sometimes see as well for bisexual people. I think it does a disservice to this character because, you know, if he has committed to be with Wendy and figure things out, even if it is across the world, even if she is literally halfway across the galaxy, okay, then he should be committed to that decision regardless of, you know, whoever's coming around and turning his eye. Like, I really wanted to see that character development in Chris, and I feel like this season would have been the perfect chance to test that. But unfortunately they went down the route of, oh, he's such a player, oh, he's such an F-boy once again. And I feel like it's especially unfortunate because he is presented as a pansexual character. Like, we don't have to perpetuate negative stereotypes about the LGBTQ community. We don't have to do that, sis. I promise you we don't. But even aside from the whole dodgy depiction of a pansexual character thing, I still had an issue with Chris purely because they tried to present this love triangle that he has going on between, you know, him and Wendy and Puleng's cousin. They tried to portray it as a storyline that we should be invested in when there is no way in hell. I must reiterate once again, there is no way in hell I am focused on anything other than the fact that my sister has been kidnapped by, why do I need to say this so many times? She has been kidnapped by a human trafficking ring and is up for sale. She's up to be bought. There is nothing else that is occupying my mind, least of all Chris, least of all that kid who literally cannot even get it together for a split second, to the point where he asks out Puleng's cousin when sis is still in her hospital bed. This show is expecting me to care about Chris when Fikile and Puleng's lives are on the line. What a joke. And speaking of failed relationships, let's talk about Wade. Let's talk about Wade for a second here. You know, Wade was supposed to be the nice guy. Wade was supposed to be the best friend turned boyfriend. He was supposed to be the Ron Stoppable of this series. Unfortunately, things don't go well and Wade and Puleng end up breaking up. And honestly, yes. Yeah. Honestly, well done to the writers. Like, I'm glad we didn't have to sit through the Wade Puleng love storyline for too long. One, because sis ends up getting kidnapped. I must say, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna put that out there again, okay? But two, because these guys had no chemistry whatsoever. I'm so sorry. These guys had zero chemistry. chemistry whatsoever. In a year where we have seen some truly electrifying on-screen chemistry in TV shows and movies, this was not it. Like, this could not be this show's offering for best relationship, because it just flopped. I'm so sorry to say. I didn't feel any emotional, romantic feelings from Puleng towards Wade. Like, I didn't see any of it. And in the end, when they do break up, she's really upset and she's crying. And I'm like, sis, why are you crying? Are those tears of relief? Like, he was just best friend material. There was no romantic chemistry there whatsoever. But Wade, ever the faithful best friend, does end up helping out Puleng by any means necessary, and he ends up in the shipyard as well. And he's actually the one that notices that the police officer, we'll talk about him in a sec, oh my god, the police captain, shall I say, was also in the shipyard, and he was probably complicit in these criminal activities. So Wade is still a useful character, is my point. Like, he still has a use in this A storyline, and I think he is appreciated. I don't know how necessary it was for us to get Puleng's cousin, whose name escapes me, sorry. He's a new addition, and I like the character, and I like the LGBTQ representation, but I just don't like how they used him, one, when it came to the love triangle with Chris, boo, and two, when it came to him basically being a Wade's sidekick for this season because Puleng was off having been kidnapped. But I guess we needed someone to be talking to Wade during his escapades, so like, fine, I'll allow it. I mean, it could have been Puleng's brother, honestly, that joined him, but maybe he's a bit too young. That's why they had the other storyline with her brother. That was an unnecessary storyline in my opinion, but you know, fine. They did what they had to do so that Wade could interact with someone whilst he was staking out the shipyard. And that's another thing about this series, by the way, and it's a problem that I've noticed throughout several Netflix series, and that is that we have way too many characters on the chessboard here. Like, that we have way too many characters, especially this season, when they keep introducing new characters, new players on this board, and it's tough to kind of follow along with all of their journeys and be invested in all of these characters equally. And that's how you end up with a bunch of characters and storylines that just feel irrelevant. Okay, so I was going to move on to the next teen on the list, but since I've already mentioned the police detective, let's just talk about him here, shall we? That man is the devil. Yep. Absolutely. Well, actually no, I don't think he's the devil, because he's not running the operation like KB's mum, but he's definitely a demon. Like, he's definitely up there in the hierarchy in hell. He absolutely sucks, and that is the major issue that's always hovering over this entire hellish case, and that is that as much as these young ladies try their best to gather evidence, you know, they're doing all of the detectiving, all of the Sherlocking in the world, none of that matters at the end of the day when they can't rely on the police to take this information and do something with it. Why? Because the police are so deeply corrupt. They are in the pockets of whoever is running this operation. And so as much as these girls have the evidence, they have everything that they need to prove that these parties are involved, they can't do anything with this. Like, what can they do? They can't raise an army. They can't raise a police force. So what can they feasibly do? And that's how they end up in these horrible, vulnerable positions, because they're on their own here. Now, for a horrible second there, I actually thought that a detective had gotten away with everything. You see at the end there when he's in his office again, and he has that newspaper article behind him being like, hero detective saves girl, blah blah blah, and I was just like frothing at them. I was so angry. I was like, are you actually joking? He actually got away with being a literal demon, okay, a corrupt demon. But then you get that sweet little, you get that sweet little revenge. Okay, Wade has been doing his homework. Everyone has been helping out. And we finally get to nail this guy down with this like radio tampering situation. And it's just so satisfying. And also I felt so relieved. I was like, oh, thank goodness. It gave me some hope and faith in humanity at the end. And it's made even sweeter still when we get that scene at the almost very end where we see KB's mum finally apprehended by the police. She's trying to run away in this van. Okay, she's literally just like, she's got what, chicken feathers in her hair. Okay, she's trying to make it out of there like El Chapo, but they finally apprehend her, and I hope that means that she's going to be facing some severe consequences consequences for this horrific operation that she was running, because sis was truly the devil. Like I said, she was the devil. Now, at the very end of the finale, you do see that her operation was not the only one being run in this country, and that's sad. Like, that's depressing again, but you know, they gave us a little bit of a happy ending, so of course they had to douse our hopes, again our dreams, by giving us that information. I don't know if they'll get a chance to, you know, have a 4th season and explore that a bit further, but if they do, I don't even know where they could take it really, because they've already had Puleng be kidnapped and go through this hellish experience, so I don't even know how you would top that. So good luck to them with trying to figure out what direction you go in after this insane season, because I really do think they reached their peak of drama and thriller here. And finally, I saved the best till last, but you know, since I've been talking about his mother so much, let me just talk about KB for a little bit. Let me just rant about KB for a little bit here. Listen, is he the worst character on the show? No. No, because there are actual, you know, human traffickers and all of that. But he's close. Sorry. I continue to strongly dislike this character. I remember disliking him for season 2 as well, but I can't remember what I said in my review of the series. So, you know, again, refresh your memories if you would like and check out that review. But I can tell you why I didn't like him this time around. Okay, I can explain why I hated KB throughout season 3. And that is because he trying to exist in this like no man's land between his parents and his friends. His parents, who are the criminals, his parents who are the perpetrators of these heinous crimes against humanity, whereas his friends are the victims of his parents' crimes. That's what really pissed me off about KB. Here's the thing, I understand that he had doubts about his parents. Okay, he was like, oh, I don't know if my parents are human traffickers. I don't know if my parents are criminals. Okay, like maybe you guys are wrong, maybe the evidence is wrong, maybe you know, maybe you should double check or whatever. Like he was really reluctant to believe it, and I get it on some level, because it's like, who wants to believe that their parents are criminals, you know what I mean? But at the same time, listen, I don't know about you guys. I trust if you're watching this video, you're likely a good person, right? But I don't want to make any assumptions. I'm just speaking on my own behalf here. But I've never been accused of human trafficking. That's not something that happens to me personally. I'm just speaking on my own behalf, okay? That's not something that happens to me. My point is that KB really should have been like, why is everyone accusing my parents of such heinous crimes? Why did my mum run away mere seconds after I was born? Like, why was she so absent from my life? And why has she come back now when all of this drama has started up again? Like, what's going on here? Why was he not connecting the dots? The dots that were so clearly in front of him. They were already partially connected by dotted lines. All he had to do was like draw across the dotted lines that were already connecting the dots. It drove me insane just watching KB be an idiot. And then there's a point in the show where he literally says, oh, I've been a fucking idiot. And I'm like, yeah. Yes, yeah. I just wanted to reach out my hands, strangle this guy. Like, are you kidding me? The moral of the story is, whilst I can't remember why I disliked KB previously, after having watched season 3, I can reaffirm my dislike for him because of the fact that he's such an idiot. By his own admission, he is a fucking idiot. And so, with all of that being said, guys, I'm going to be giving Blood and Water season 3 a 7.5 out of 10. So that's it from me, guys. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Blood and Water season 3, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this season down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch you videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.